Hey everyone, we're on day 2. So hopefully you got all your goals figured out and your big dreams and
do and be
and have
fun stuff.
Yeah. And so now we're gonna break it down, and we thought we'd just use my example because next year I want to ride in Cowboy Dressage. I want to ride Walk, Jog, Lope Test 7, which requires a flying lead change. And I know for me, when I was searching, when I was young, and I was searching, and I was going to clinics, and I was putting together my own program. First, I had ridden with Monty Foreman and done a lot of, and rode his protege, Pat Wise, and learned how to really be a cowgirl and break colts. And then it was John Lyons, and we learned about connection, and we learned about soft feel. And then there was Lynn Palm. And Lynn Palm had a program, did she not?
Yes.
And she's a stickler, but I loved it because she taught the process, and she didn't just teach the process for where we were at the moment, but she would give demos and then she'd explain. And so a lot of this process, I mean, we've added a few of our own things here too, but that's where it really, really helped me to know the steps in the process. So that's what we're going to do. So in Walk, Jog, Lope 7, there's a flying lead change. And so we're going to take and we're going to help break this down for you.
So this is just an example of how we would take any specific movement or thing in our training and break it down into baby steps so that we know where we need to start and we know the progression of how we're going to add to that training. So obviously all of yours won't necessarily be a flying lead change, but you'll take something and break it down this way.
Right. It doesn't matter what it is. We have to find out where we are, what we want, and hopefully you guys found out what you wanted, and then we have to be really honest about where we are, and so that we can figure out a plan to move that forward. And so with the flying lead change, hopefully you guys can see this, and we will post this on the page too. So the flying lead change. So what do we need before we go out there and do a flying lead change? So first we need to have, we'll start from this side. First we need to know, does our horse lope? Can our horse lope? Can our horse lope consistently? Right? I'm not being able to read backwards, Daily.
So we need to be able to lope comfortably in a relaxed manner with both leads balanced, where you're not struggling just to lope. Right?
Yeah, it has to be consistent lope.
To be a nice lope.
Right? Both directions, both leads.
Yes.
Consistent.
So, and then, of course, if you're going to be able to do that, it means that your horse is rating their speed.
Right. Yeah. So we don't want to have to be pulling back on a horse, right? We want to put them in the speed that we want, and they will stay there in that speed. We do need bend. Bend both directions. Nice bend both directions.
At the lope.
At the lope. Which one's that?
Soften the jaw.
Soften the jaw. Can you pick up in your horse's reins and have them give to that pressure, or do they resist? And again, it has to be consistent. It's not just some of the time. It's not just some of the time when you add extra effort to it. It's every single time you touch your horse's reins, they soften that jaw. And
this has to be consistent at the lope, right? So again, if we don't have these things at the lope, then do we have them at the walk? And we go back and we get them at the walk. And then do we have these things at the jog? We go back and we get them consistent at the jog, and then we get them consistent at the lope.
Right.
And then our last thing is the stop.
Right? Can we get them to stop? Because the stop's going to be part of our progression forward into creating this flying lead change. All right, so moving up, I'll say we have all of that. Then do we have shoulder control? Can we move those horses' shoulders wherever we want to move them? Do we have hip control? Can we move those hips back and forth wherever we want? Then can we lope with counter bend? Is our horse consistent and smooth and willing and light in the counter bend? All right.
Then we have to have a balanced departure from a stop. So that means from a stop, your horse can lope off in a
And that's
balanced,
getting quite advanced, isn't it?
control manner.
Yeah, that's getting quite advanced. And so, yeah, make sure that that's consistent. Again, these are the steps that we're going to take forward into doing the exercises we need to create that lead change that we want.
And this creates, I mean, it takes quite a lot of time just to create the muscle in your horse for them to be able to do this. So you have to be riding consistently.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then the counter canter.
Counter's tough. You
It's
guys, it
really
takes
hard.
a lot of rhythm for the rider to help the horse have balance in a counter. You know, can the horse hold the counter? And we don't just do counters at a 20-meter circle. We do counters at a 10-meter circle. You know, can our horses even do that? You know, we want them to be that balanced before we go head off into our flying lead change.
But the benefit of this is that your regular lope will be so much nicer
Oh, yeah.
if you can do this.
Totally. What's that one?
And then we have a parts exercise.
Yes, we have a parts exercise, and it starts out with the head the same direction as the hip, right? So we have to have head control, shoulder control, face control, and so it's a forehand turn with the head the same direction. Then can we back a circle, right? We're moving that shoulder over and that hip's going the other way. Then can we do a counter bend with that horse's shoulder moving to the right, and really stepping, say, on 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. You know, then can we just move the shoulder over at 2 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and then go back to lateral bend. And I really kind of did that backwards, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
So it starts with lateral bend. Then can we move the shoulder on 10 and 2? Mm-hmm. Then can we move the shoulder over on a counter flex where your horse is really stepping back on 3 and 9 or even further to do a counter bend? Can they stop and then do a forehand turn with the head the same direction as the hip? Then can you switch? And you know what? If you could do this with a loose rein and just your seat and legs, it's even added bonus, right?
Yeah.
Because if this is, when you switch directions right there, this whole thing sets you up for a lead change.
Try doing it with just one rein and then doing it with no reins.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got all of that going on. Now we need to be able to do, what is this? Counter bend to the new direction.
Okay, so that is you're in counter bend, and then you switch it to your encounter canter, you counter correct bend, then you switch it to counter new bend, right? So if you can picture that, all right, see, we're in the right lead, but we're bending to the left, right? So you can see, if you can imagine that, you know, your next step is putting the outside leg on and trying to change leads, right? But first we're going to add another exercise. So we're going to take that and we're going to get into our circle. So we're going to be in counter bend, say right lead, new bend. We're going to stop, pick up correct lead, correct bend, stop, correct, you know, pick up counter canter, you know, in the same bend. We're continually bending right, but we're picking up different leads, if that's making sense to you guys.
From the stop. So you canter correct lead, stop, switch to counter canter, so you've got your other lead going on, stop, switch to new lead, stop.
And let me make that clear, because I don't want you thinking that we're going to pick up that counter canter in the wrong bend. We'll
No.
pick up the counter canter in the correct bend for the lead, and then we switch the bend back
In the while you're in the low.
while you're in the low.
Yep.
So you get all that put together and you get it all soft. Your next thing is 1, 2, count strides, 1, 2, 3, and change, right? So you're loping along. Say we're loping through with our left lead. We're going to create the new bend. Then we're going to count 1, 2, 3, new outside leg, and change.
So there's an
Simple as
example.
that.
Yeah, easy,
Right.
easy peasy.
Right.
Okay.
Lots and lots of steps.
So hopefully that makes sense that how that was broken down. So we started with just being able to lope consistently, right? And then we worked all these steps through to a flying lead change. So the same is pretty much true of any maneuver that you want to do. You start with this big finishing whatever that maneuver is that you want to accomplish, and you just break it down to where you would start from. Like if we were to start any horse, this is all the stuff that we would put on them right from the get-go.
Right, and we can't jump ahead. You jump ahead, you just end up with your problems carried through, right?
Yeah, you can jump ahead.
Well,
you
you
just
can.
won't get anywhere.
You can. But
I mean, if we could get somewhere, we would have done it, right? I mean, we're all
well, and you guys, I told you guys, we started out with Monty Foreman, and holy crap, you better have a good seat and know how to ride when you go to one of his clinics. And that's what we were doing, is we were doing flying lead changes. Now, if you go through the center of the arena on the diagonal at full speed and you put your weight in the other stirrup, your horse, because of balance, is going to change leads. But your horse is also going to learn to run off when you're teaching them flying lead changes. This is a way to do it where we're keeping them mentally and emotionally stable while we're doing it. We're breaking it down so much that it's just the next baby step for them. It's not going to, everything, lots of times things get ugly before they get pretty. So don't think it's pretty continually. But this sets the horse up for success, and helps you have the parts to be able to play with, to fix and to mold into this flying lead change.
And if you go through all of these steps and really truly get them consistent, you will have enough timing and feel to actually make this happen and be of support to your horse. Because if we don't have all the timing and rhythm and feel that we need, we become more of a stumbling block than a help. And so it really sets us up for success as riders if we can break this down and make sure that we feel solid. And then we can help the next horse that comes along. So
Right, so find out where you are in this process, and then work the steps. It's just a systematic process of working the steps to get you to the dream and the goal that you want for you and your horse. So we're trying to keep this short. We did a really good job. So thank you guys.
thanks. Bye.